Welcome to Sketchbook Challenge 11. Hanging out with me today is Mr. James Polony, and today we are going to talk reptiles. Reptiles are really cool, and they're probably, I don't know if they're my favorite to draw, but I would say of all the animal kingdom, I just think they're the most interesting. They're just so reptilian, you know what I mean? I just dig them, the scales, and I think since I was a kid, I was obsessed. I think part of it was they freaked me out a little bit. Snakes in particular, I was always afraid of, but because I was afraid of them, I was just enamored with them at the same time. Like I was almost obsessed, and I would draw snakes, and I loved movies where like they had snakes in them because like it was scary, but at the same time, I felt safe, you know, because I'm not really with the snakes, they're just on the movie. I don't know, how do you feel about reptiles?
I prefer Sub-Zero because he shoots the ice blast.
All right. So here's what's up. You guys know the drill. I want you to fill a page with something reptile-ish. It can be cartoony, it can be realistic, but from top to bottom, from side to side, somehow I want you to do some studies of reptiles. You could do the fill technique, where it's a bunch of reptiles that you're like doing the silhouettes or drawing them small, or you could have some kind of scene that has a bunch of them in them. So I want to do just a little bit of a demo today. So James, do you have any reference of reptiles I could look at to do a quickity demo?
This one is known as the Spider-Man lizard.
What?
Because if you really look at it, the coloration as he's crouching looks basically like Spider-Man.
It really does. That's crazy. Okay, so what else you got? I mean, that's
This
just crazy.
surprise little leopard gecko
Wow.
in rare blue coloration.
That's beautiful.
You'd like to say, what? We also have your standard, just little gecko there. It's just a very vibrant green. And one of my personal favorites is this
Whoa.
pit viper that reminds you of an Aztec feathered god with the snake head.
Wow.
I can never pronounce it correctly.
These are all incredible, and I encourage you guys to look up some of this crazy reference. Let's do the one right before, just because I think that's just kind of a standard reptile that I can kind of draw for you. So here's kind of the trick with drawing scales. There is such a thing as kind of too much and getting a little too thick with those lines. So the idea for drawing a reptile, at least my way of doing it, is this. Lightly, I'm gonna kind of build my head. Here's kind of the snout here. There's kind of this eye here. There's this eye here. And then here's this here. So that's kind of my basic shape here. So the idea that would be really good for scales, now I'm going to draw it darker with more confident lines. That eye obviously is kind of a focal area, so we can really lock that in nice and dark. So there's kind of like this highlight here. There's a nice highlight there. The pupil is really dark, but that just helps the highlight stand out a lot more. And it's very similar to a human iris and pupil. And I think that's something that when you see something adorable and cute like this, the fact that it has an eye with, you know, sometimes snakes just have those like slits where the pupil is. Add just a little bit more. There's kind of this really defined area that goes around. You can see it kind of gets darker kind of around the underside. We're going to draw a lot of scales here, but to help really make it stand out, you need to kind of pick and choose where your lights and darks are going. There's like this, I assume that's an ear hole. We don't want to just draw a straight line because it actually has kind of these bumps to it where the scales are. And we need to really define that mouth, so once we draw in those scales, the mouth isn't going to get lost. And you want to be really delicate with these lines. Like up close already, this is looking like teeth. From a distance, hopefully we're still going to see this overlying shape. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead up close. This is a lot of scales, and it's almost hard to kind of make out what this is. But hopefully from a distance, when you kind of just, if I were to like not look at it for 5 minutes and then look at it again, hopefully it would just look like this awesome gecko. And sometimes that's a good thing to do, because I feel like sometimes when you've been staring at the same drawing for a long time, you start to see through your mistakes a little bit. And you guys have probably had the experience, I have this experience all the time, where I'll look at a drawing and maybe I think it's good, maybe I think it's bad, but it never fails the next day after I haven't looked at it for a while and I've maybe, you know, slept on it, no pun intended, like I didn't really sleep on it, but I just sleep and I just kind of don't think about it for a while. And then the next day I kind of look at it with fresh eyes. You start to see it in a whole new light. You're seeing it the way most people would. You know, when people look at your art, they didn't see all the hours and hours of planning and drawing and shading that went into it. They just see it for what it is. And so it really helps to kind of, sometimes, especially if something's not working and you can't figure out what it is, don't just close the book on your sketchbook and say, I suck at drawing, I'm not gonna draw anymore. But sometimes it does help to close the book, maybe watch a show on Netflix, like don't think about it for a while, come back to it, open up your sketchbook again, and right away you'll see, oh, this arm is too short. That's what's wrong with it. You'll be able to see right away where it needs to go. So another trick that you can do that actually is really helpful, a quick way to reevaluate your drawing. A lot of times either digital artists will do this really easy, or if you take a photo of your artwork in your phone and if you mirror image it, if you, sometimes it's called flop. If you flop your image so that everything goes backwards the other way, you'll kind of be disoriented because nothing looks the same going the other way, and you'll be able to see right away. You might not notice when you've been drawing it all this way, but when you flip it around, you might be like, whoa, this eye's way too high, you know, it's not high enough this way, the nose looks like it's pushed over here, and you'll be able to catch stuff that you may not have caught as easily as when you get to step away and not look at something for a while. Another thing you can do sometimes, like if you don't want to do all the scales everywhere, sometimes you can kind of just pick and choose where you want a lot of the detail to be, and then you can kind of have them taper off a little bit. Just kind of sporadically pick and choose, and it's almost like these are the ones that maybe have highlights on them or something. That way the texture is still there, but you're not drawing every single scale. These lines are a little bit dark, so sometimes when you're drawing scales, instead of drawing scales like this, sometimes instead of drawing scales like that, where you've got this dark line around all of them, sometimes it's better again, it's almost like connecting edges where see how you can see those scales without actually drawing the lines in between them. So sometimes going through, if I do a little bit of this, it's almost like kind of opens some of those up a little bit where you can see the scales there, but it's just not as, because these just look like a bunch of circles close together, and it's putting darkness, you're putting darkness in places where it's not. It's almost like you're just making them way too dark. I had to stand back and take a look. I couldn't tell up close, but once I stood back and kind of tried to take it in and try to look at it like I'm looking at it for the first time. Yeah. Oh, that helps so much. So thank you for the gecko, James. All right, that is Sketchbook Challenge number 11. Don't forget to use the hashtag Sketchbook Challenge, but of course today's specific hashtag is SBC Reptiles. Like the video, subscribe, notification bell, comments down below, share because you care, and Instagram, Matt_Busch_Instagram.